Back to part 5 of the beginner Roblox scripting tutorial, and in today's video we'll be going over key state words like if, else, then, and, or, and there's many other words, but these are just basically the starter ones, and I'll explain all of them in this video. So let's get started. Alright, so let's go back into our script here. Start off with changing the size. So if is the most simple one, because it's just detecting if something you want. Let's just delete this. So back in our parts, which is where this script is, how about we change it to part instead? So let's say if my part, which is the variable or what we're referencing, and we're gonna say the property, which is the name, is equal to parts, then. Now, you'll notice this has an error here because you have to have two equals. That's one rule. And then we say then, and then we hit enter, and then it's going to make an end here. And like functions, this describes that this is the end. So if what we want, which is the my part name to be part, let's do a print statement here. So we'll say print the part name is part. So let's go back to the game and let's view our output here. And let's click run, and it'll say the part name is part. Now, what if we didn't name this to this specific name? Let's name it back to parts with a Z. And if we run the game now, you'll see it's not there because it's not named a part. It won't do anything at all. However, if it is, then it will print this. Let's go over our next statement, which is else if. So this is if you want to check another property that you want. So how about we just do another thing? So this is basically saying unless this doesn't work, then if the part name is equal to parts, and let's just space that there, and then we'll say then. And this won't add another end because this is the main part, which makes this entire thing. So else if the part name is equal to parts in a string, then let's say print in quotes the parts name is parts, and we're just gonna make that a string. So let's run the game again. It'll say the part name is parts, and how about we change it back to part, and we run the game, and it'll say the part name is part. But what if we want to detect if it's not any of these? So our next one is called else, and this will basically say if none of these are true, then it will do what is after the else. And you can only do this after every else, if, and if, because it won't work. So if I just put, say if I just put this up here, you'll see this one has been underlined, which means there will be an error. So make sure to put the else at the bottom. And for else if, make sure it's after an if statement or inside the if. So for a print statement, we'll say, spelled like that wrong. And also before running the game, let's just say we name it to parte, and we run the game. Neither part, because the part name is not equal to parts nor part. Also, another rule for else if is that you can do it as many times as you want under the if. Also, if I try to do else if here, I can't. And if it's not in an if, then what else works? And that's same for else as well. Alright, let's go over ands now. So this will detect both two properties or two checks that we want. So let's remove all of this part here, all the else, if, and the else. So and statements are basically detecting both checks. So if that is good and that is also good, then it'll continue and make this print statement. So let's type in and at the end of the part string, and then let's just space it out. So let's also see if this cast shadow is enabled or true. So we'll say my part dot cast shadow is equal to true, then it will print this. So let's run the game now. It'll say the part name is part. However, if we disable cast shadows by clicking it off, and now the box is hollow, if we run the game, you'll notice it hasn't appeared. Let's enable it back again and name it to something else. So name it back to parts again, and we'll run the game, and you'll notice it's not there. Because if any of these checks aren't what we want, then it won't do anything, or it'll go to the next else if or else statement. And the next one should be pretty easy. It's or. So or will basically detect if either of these are what we want or checked. If I name this, well, to parts, but if I enable cast shadow, So our part name is parts. So let's run the game here. You'll notice it'll say the part name is part. However, if we disable cast shadows on the parts name, then we'll run the game. Now that may seem similar to and, but this will detect either of these if they are what we want. The next one is a bit complex, but it's easy to understand once you know it. So let's remove all this, and the next one we're going to go over is return. Now this does two things. One, it returns back to what the script last did, or two, it returns a variable within a function. So we can actually turn a function into a variable. So let's make a function here. So local function print number, or how about we make a variable. Now these are actually called arguments. Alright, so in this function, we're gonna actually add, maybe say like +2. So we're gonna say local added number equals number +2, and we're going to do our return. So we'll say return added number, and let's make this function a variable. So local my number is equal to the print number function, and let's say a number of 4, and let's do print my number. And let's go into the game here and click run, and you'll see it says 6. So this basically takes the added number variable within the function and return it to this variable here. And this can be helpful in a lot of ways. However, it will execute the function once you call it in a variable. So that's one thing to look out for. Alright, so let's talk about return going back in the script. So let's delete all this. And let's make a new function. So say local function check name, and we'll put a string argument in there. So we'll just name it string, and say if we want to find a part within the workspace as the string name. So first we're going to say our if statement, and this will call in our next keyword, which is not. So it's basically saying false, or the opposite, or if it can't find it, or whatever. So in our case, we're trying to find a part that's named after the string here. So we'll say workspace, and because we can't do dot string, because string is not part of the actual workspace, we're gonna have to put that in square brackets, and then say the string argument, and we're gonna say then return, and leave it blank. And then if we go below the end statement, we'll just say print string, do dot, and then we'll say in quotes, or string has been found. So this is basically saying else, basically, and basically them flop. So this will say if there is workspace string, then it'll print this. However, if there isn't, or else, then it will not do anything. And you almost see or experienced developers use it like this. So they put it in one line here just to make it very simple. So this is actually a pretty compact way of making the else and else statements. Let's actually call the function here. So we'll say check name, and let's look for our parts name here. So we'll say in curly brackets, and we'll put in a string because it's a string, and we'll say parts. Now let's run the game here. And it'll see it says parts has been found. However, if we name this to say parts, then if we run the game, okay, gave me an error, but you get the idea. It does nothing if it hits this return statement. Now, I don't think we can make this error by saying find first child, so this will look through all of the hierarchy of below the workspace. So we're going to say the string statement, so this will find it. So this basically will not throw an error. And as you'll see, it has done nothing. It hasn't printed the output. However, if I rename the part back to parts and we run the game, then it'll say parts have been found. Alright, in the next episode, we will be going over while loops. So I'll see you guys later.